Welcome to the Wealthy Circle podcast, where we take a deeper dive into this year's finalists and winners from our wealthmanagement.com 2020 industry awards. These interviews cover the challenges, innovations, and trends in the wealth management industry and the individuals working to help advisors better help their clients.
Hello, welcome to the Wealthies Podcast. This is the podcast where we speak to the folks who have won wealthmanagement.com industry awards, the awards which recognize the initiatives designed to help advisors succeed. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Jack Swift. He's senior partner and president of the fintech startup studio and incubator TIFIN Group. And I've spoken to Jack in the past. So Jack, it's great to have you with us today and to catch up.
Great to be here, Davis.
Well, I've been following along with the developments you guys have had over these, it's been 2 years, but it seems like you have done an awful lot just in this last year. Do you want to give the listeners a quick summary of the latest and greatest?
Sure. We have been busy starting and building companies, which is what we do at TIFIN. We're focused on shaping the future of investing through improving the investor's experience and outcome. And we do that by leveraging AI and building investment-driven personalization. Today we have 9 companies or 9 underlying business units. Really, you should think of TIFIN as the company and then the individual brands as business units. And we've grown from about 50 people this time last year to over 175 people today across these 9 business units. So some of the newer ones are Plan IQ and Distill. We can talk more about those later. Some of the other business units that people may be familiar with are Magnify, Positively, Clout. So these are all business units underneath TIFIN, and we just want to continue to start and build the companies that are leveraging a combination of investment intelligence, data science, and technology to make investing more engaging and just a better overall experience.
One of the things I, as a longtime technology reporter, like to do is dive a little bit deeper than what a lot of advisors and other folks in the industry tend to think of as jargon. And with TIFIN in particular, one of the things that most fascinates me is how it is AI driven. It is based a lot on machine learning, and really how the underlying startups within TIFIN, not only the developers work across one another, you have a dedicated integration group there, but also how the apps, and you can correct how you guys actually refer to them internally, but how the apps within the group actually learn from one another. Personalization is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but really it's sort of harvesting data on the clients from multiple areas, I guess, from say an advisor's own CRM system to external things like CRM system holdings, then maybe that brings in their social media in terms of clout, I guess, and probably Positively. But if you could give us a little bit on just sort of a slightly deeper dive on how AI in particular is being leveraged within TIFIN, because to me, that's one of the most fascinating things about the group.
Happy to do that. AI also gets thrown around a lot, and when we talk about AI here, we're talking about proprietary artificial intelligence and machine learning that we've built from the ground up. For example, with Magnify, we have 3 patents on what we've built on the back end. So it's not off-the-shelf AI, it's robust AI, and it's very focused, as all our companies are, on the wealth space and really the space that exists between the asset manager and the investor and advisor. Right, so everything we build is focused on that space across all of our business units. Now, each one of those business units that you noted on the back end is written in Python, which is the best language for AI ML. And so they learn individually. So, for example, Magnify is a natural language driven search platform for discovering, comparing, overall evaluating, and ultimately trading investments, whether those are ETFs, closed-end funds, mutual funds, even model portfolios. So with Magnify, it took us about 12 months to get to the first million searches. And today we do between 250,000 and 300,000 a day. So it takes us about 5 days to get to the next million searches. So Each of those searches, Magnify is learning on the back end. It's reading 10Ks, 10Qs, and prospectuses and using semantic search to create a better matching exercise. Same thing that happens with Amazon, actually. It's based on natural language search. But if you typed in Corona in March 1st of 2020, it would have given you beer. And by March 14th, it was giving you investments related to ventilators, right? So it learns very, very quickly. And at this point, we have a very nice data moat that we've built with Magnify, because all of the data is becoming more and more intelligent. Now, to your point, across our business units, Clout, Magnify, Positively, Totem, and others, we're building integrations. And so they learn not only on their own, but they learn from one another. And collectively, what we're doing is we're creating a 360-degree view of what investors are thinking, what they want to learn about, where they're investing. We can see with Clout, for example, what kind of content they're consuming, where they're consuming that content. With Positively, we know about their financial personality type. So what kind of content do certain personalities like? With Totem, we understand more about their risk. With Plan IQ, we know about their planning needs. And obviously back to Magnify. With Magnify, we know what they're searching for. As we have now over 500 billion registered advisors on Magnify, so we can see what those advisors are interested in investing in and they're thinking about.
And that 500 billion, that's the total AUM on the platform.
That is correct.
Or viewable on a readable on the platform.
Yeah, it's about 800 advisors that are registered. And we know other advisors that are not registered use the free version of Magnify every day. But the $600 billion is in AUM for the advisors that are registered.
Got it. On a lighter note, one thing that I think I asked you about the last time we spoke, I'm wondering if this is any more the case as you've grown in terms of employees, but is being based in Boulder a good thing or a bad thing? I have to believe hooky might be a problem that you guys would see with all the outdoor activities possible right outside the door of probably the offices.
Yeah, we've had no issues really recruiting as we've scaled the business. And I think to a large degree, people want to move to Colorado. And we're lucky that we have the university here, and it's got one of the best engineering programs in the country. I think their aerospace program is ranked 10th currently with the University of Colorado. So we can obviously attract folks that are just coming out of those engineering programs, but we also have in Boulder a pretty significant presence with Google, Facebook, Twitter. They all have pretty large presences here. I've been told that when the students aren't here, the employees for those companies I just described represent about 10% of our total population in Boulder. So we don't have any issue recruiting folks to Colorado. Now we have found there's a lot of talent, for example, in marketing on the West Coast. So we've hired the former chief marketing officer from eBay, and he was the former chief monetization officer for eBay and chief marketing officer for eHarmony. And he is on the West Coast where we find a lot of marketing talent. So we have a San Francisco office as well. And we also have a New York office where, for example, our general counsel is based. So depending on the talent we're looking for, data scientists, machine learning experts, we can find them in Boulder. Others in other areas of the business we find in New York or San Francisco. And to your point on playing hooky, not so much a problem. We're driving so fast and everybody's really into their work that sure, they enjoy nice work-life balance because you can fly fish, I think, about 3 blocks from our office. But we really find that energizing, and folks spend a lot of time pouring the energy back into these businesses.
Well, talking about growth and expansion, I know that you guys had a Series B raise of about 22 million plus earlier in 2021. Is there other funding round on the 4 coming up that you can talk about at all?
Yeah, we were really pleased with the Series B because that allowed us to take investments from and create strategic partnerships with JP Morgan, Morningstar, and Broadridge. And they've all been great partners, by the way. We're busy building integrations with them currently across their product set and workflows and co-building with them. So we will be bringing a lot more to their advisor communities through the work we're doing with them in partnership. With the Series C, which we just wrapped up last Friday, we'll bring in another strategic partner that we're very, very excited to announce in a few weeks. And the Series C round went very, very quickly. We were oversubscribed, which we feel very fortunate to be in that position. And that's plenty of capital to carry us for quite a long while.
Well, that's great to hear. For those advisors that aren't necessarily familiar, and I did write both about the Morningstar and the Broadridge integration partnerships that you guys have done. Can you elaborate just a little bit? I think the Broadridge was focused on their marketing platform, and I guess taking the pieces within TIFIN most aligned with marketing and integrating there. And then with Morningstar, a lot of advisors are probably very interested in the direct indexing partnership you guys formed there. Can you elaborate just a little bit? Tell us a little bit about what those two are about.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure many folks are familiar with the fact that Broadridge has clients like Edward Jones, UBS Wealth, JP Morgan Wealth, and they have historically come from more of a back office orientation. And so the partnership with TIFIN is allowing them to do two things. One, be more present on the front end, so a better UI UX for their products, and two, bring innovation through the partnership with TIFIN to those large incumbent players. And so we've worked on integrations with Broadridge. And I should probably take a step back. All of our companies are built as a series of modular APIs, which is they can be easily plugged into somebody else's workflow. So that's exactly what we're doing with Broadridge today, with TIFIN companies, Totem, Positively, and Magnify. So we're working on building into the Broadridge workflow the ability to evaluate risk through Totem, the ability to understand individual investors and advisors, financial personality types. So whether they're focused on expressing viewpoints through their investing or learning through their investing, it's really about personalization at scale with Positively. And then with Magnify, Broadridge has been very, very interested in leveraging, and we're building integrations with them around what we call Google Your Book, which is leveraging natural language search to sort through an advisor's book of business, whether it's a SEP IRA, or if it's a Roth or a regular IRA, whether it's mom's account, dad's account, junior's account, if it's custody at Schwab, it's custody at Fidelity. Magnify doesn't really care. You can ask Magnify to do things like show me my lowest performing clients, and it'll populate those in less than a second. Or show me my clients that own Tesla, and it'll tell you exactly how much each client has in Tesla. So that sort of feature is very attractive to Broadridge, and we believe will be very, very powerful in driving results for Broadridge clients. With Morningstar, we've launched direct indexing capabilities at Magnify that were designed by Morningstar. And so that's been a really great first step in our partnership there. We have other integrations with their workflows that we're working on that will roll out in the first quarter of next year.
Well, I'm also interested what's the latest with the various custodians, because I know it's been a year ago that I wrote about, I guess it was the first big Magnify integration, which was with Schwab, and basically being able to, it sounds very similar to what you just described with Broadridge, which was advisors who custody assets at Schwab could basically bring their entire book of business or see their entire book of business inside Magnify, and I guess very easily perform all sorts of simple searches. How has that advanced, and are there integrations in the mix with other custodians that you can talk about?
Yeah, we do view things a little bit differently, Davis. We have a heavy orientation towards the fin side of fintech. We're not a bunch of recent Stanford grads that decide they want to build a technology company. As you look at the team and the folks we continue to assemble, most recently we announced that Kathy Wood from ARK Invest has joined our board, but other folks like Anil Arora, who built Yodlee and ultimately sat on the board and still sits on the board of InvestNet, and folks like Sharon French, who's now my partner at TIFIN, has joined a few weeks ago. She used to run AIG Asset Management. These are all folks that have a heavy understanding of investments. So we say we're very heavy on the fin side of fintech. So that's where we've been focused. And we look around, having experienced a lot of the pain points that advisors face each day. We're focused on building into trends like personalization. We think about personalization is driven by AI, and we want to build platforms for advisors where they're not just data driven and cloud based, but their orientation is on action, and they have a very easy UI UX, very easy experience. They provide a very easy experience for that advisor, and leveraging the intelligent backend to do so. For example, we were building a conversational AI driven planning platform called Plan IQ, where you can ask Plan IQ very direct questions like, Plan IQ, this would be an advisor maybe asking on behalf of a client, Plan IQ, can I retire when I'm 62? And Plan IQ will say back to you, the chat bot will say back to you, well, I need to ask you, Davis, I need to ask you a few questions first. Where do you live? What industry are you in? In a very, very short series of questions, we can provide a pretty accurate answer. So, but it's by leveraging publicly available information, and again, pulling in data from a series of different sources. That's how we're able to build that type of platform to serve the advisor community. So I think that as far as trends in the marketplace, obviously we talked about AI, ML, talked about personalization, we talked about data-driven decisions. What we see, there's two others I think are worth highlighting that we're building into. And first is the democratization of not access. People have access to high quality investments today, but it's a democratization of intelligence, right? Being able to leverage that AI to make better decisions and drive personalization, and ultimately to help people get to their wealth goals faster, right? And make the whole process easier by removing frictions for advisors as they go through that process with their client. And for another example of the way we're building into these trends is if you're working as an advisor with Positively, our financial personality assessment platform, you can hit a button and flip that around and show it on Zoom. So we're building things that that advisors can use not only on their own, but can easily and digitally share with their clients in a conversational format, rather than a intake of a lot of information and then an output of more information that's not very action oriented. We want it to be easy on the front end and be action oriented as we produce those results.
That's another thing that it's been, well, I guess as much with some of my fellow editors when I do write about you guys, but also advisors. Advisors a lot of advisors are always on the lookout for the next new technology that's going to really help them with efficiency in their business. They also are leery of, well, do I just want to bring something in that's duplicative or has a lot of overlap? And with you guys, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the applications within the startups across TIFIN are additive. They're not necessarily replacing some of the core technology you have, but additive to it, working with it. And you can probably more eloquently bring that into the clearer terms for the advisors than I can.
Sure. Yeah, we don't necessarily want to replace something. Now, we do see replacement happening with, for example, Totem. It oftentimes replaces Riskalyze because it's a much more intelligent, easier to use, and less expensive platform. And so for those that have not been pleased with their Riskalyze experience, we see them shifting to Totem. With other business units like Magnify, it's meant to work with advisors in their current workflow, but just make the overall process easier and drive towards more efficiency. And you're leveraging. It's really you become an AI powered advisor when you say to Magnify, I'm going to read in through the Schwab integration, as you mentioned earlier. I'm going to read in a client's portfolio. I'm going to ask Magnify to do certain things for me, like give me higher yields, give me less volatility, lower the fees without disrupting the holdings that my client has, because Magnify is capable of doing all those things today. So it is meant to augment and not necessarily replace, the current workflow, and it's meant to be integrated. We want to continue to create integrations with our business units that make the overall process just easier for the advisor. It's not one more thing to do. It's just helping increase, advisors' digital quotient and making growing their business easier, allowing them to focus on the things they really want to focus on. So if they're using Magnify, for example, on semantic search to navigate investments, it's a lot easier than the old way of just having digging through the 10Ks and 10Qs themselves. So So I think that we do want to be a part of workflow and ask somebody to replace their workflow. It's more about integrations and also creating model portfolio marketplaces, more new marketplaces. We do that with Magnify, for example. But it's all really focused on helping advisors to grow their business, leveraging this technology, this wealth tech.
Well, thanks for clarifying that. And I think that'll allow a lot of advisors who probably didn't get it before to better understand it. I've also cognizant of, I've been bringing up a lot of things that are basically in the past just to help elucidate for advisors what TIFIN does that I think is actually pretty groundbreaking compared to a lot of what else is in the industry, but it hasn't left you a lot of time to talk about, the future. So what are there other new initiatives that the TIFIN is working on right now for 2022 or beyond that you'd like to talk a little bit about?
Always love talking about new things. As you can tell, even though we're only a few years old, we're busy building a lot each day. And so one of the things we're most excited about is Distill. And I think I'll speak to two things we're working on, Distill and Bento. And Distill is our data science team and the initiative we have underway currently to mine the data exhaust from all of our companies and pull that into a centralized data platform, a data lake. Because there's a lot that we can learn from investors and their behavior and what advisors are doing. So the way I think about it is, you think back to how movies were produced in the 1990s. The filmmakers would make a film and just push it out. That's how it worked. Along came somebody called Netflix, and Netflix actually listened to or watched what people were, no pun intended, watching. So when they started producing their own content, it was spot on because they had been listening for a long time to what people wanted. And so I think Distill allows us to do that. It allows us to pull in data across our platforms and from external sources, with partners like Broadridge, to be able to help advisors and investors with their needs and probably more importantly, with what they want, right? We can see a lot through Distill. We're excited about what we'll be able to do with it going forward, because it can not only be pointed, Distill can not only be pointed, or its capabilities can not only be pointed to our properties, but can be pointed to, the data that exists with a Fidelity, with the Morningstar, with the JP Morgan. And so that's one of the things we're really excited about. And then the second piece is its second company is called Bento. And Bento is a separate AI layer or user interface that sits above our wealth tech business units. And so it's a one-stop interface for an advisor to be able to access different aspects of the individual business units, whether it's semantic search at Magnify, or if it's understanding risk and risk capacity, not just a risk score at Totem. There's a difference there. We talk about risk there, but doing all that through one portal. So that's called Bento, and we'll be launching that in a few weeks.
Wow, that's impressive. That's exciting too. Well, let me throw you, we're just about out of time, but I wanted to throw you one last little curveball that you may or may not want to answer. And that's that, I think you are still the chairman of Clout, and I know you're on the board, I believe, of Magnify. Do you have a favorite within the TIFIN Group, or is that too much to ask you to pick favorites in case any of the folks at TIFIN listen in? Sure.
No, I think it's a fair question, but it is like asking somebody which child is their favorite child. We have nine children, and it depends on the day. Louise, which is one of our younger ones, can be kind of fussy sometimes, and maybe I don't love Louise some days as much as I might love Clout, for example. But the reality is, I really can't choose. It depends on the day, and I think they're also complementary to one another. That it's the family that is my favorite, the combination of all of them, and some days I'm really proud of one of these business units, and some days I'm really frustrated by them, pretty much the same way I feel about my kids. So we'll keep conceiving them. Little Distill is just been put together and growing them. And, sometimes they can be difficult, but we love them all.
Well, Jack, with that, that's a great note to leave on. I want to thank you again for participating in the Wealthies podcast today, and good catching up with you again. And hopefully we can have you back sometime soon.
Davis, always great to spend time with you. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to the listeners, and we'll see you again soon.
This content has been made for information and educational purposes only. The views and opinions represent the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of wealthmanagement.com.